Hi folks, Pete here at a late hour. I'm going to lay a lot of things on the line here and talk fairly straight. So hopefully it also might inspire you or motivate you. I was doing some study on brain development and at what age does our brain develop the most. And before 5, 90% evidently of our brain is developed. So 90% of our total development in our brain apparently happens before the age of 5. When we talk about brain development, also there's an argument for what we call hardwired information that's placed in our brain. When we're very young as babies, there's within a week or so, we have things hardwired into our brain. So it leads me to a question for you guys who might be seeing this. Do you remember your first day at school? Your very first day at school? Do you remember what it was like? The smells, the emotions, the teacher, the classroom? Do you remember any of that? I do. I remember that. I remember it very clearly, and it actually is a chapter in one of my book in my biography. What about if you remember that? Do you remember when you were 3 years old? 3 years old. I do. I remember when I was 3 years old quite clearly. I remember pre-kindergarten and the feeling of excitement at going to kindergarten. What about when you were 2 years old? Do you remember? I do. I remember when I was 2 years old going down the road, down Maskell Street, and turning left into what I realise now, of course, it's Sylvia Road. And on the right-hand side, there was an elderly lady, and her name is Mrs. Turney. And I had to, all I remember was that it was an old house. She was a very Victorian-looking woman. And I remember she had a concrete path out the back of the house, and we used to play on that concrete path. Lo and behold, I found out who Mrs. Turney was, and she was born in the 1870s, sorry, and she died in her 90s in 1964. And so I remember when I was 2, and I have a photo of me in a pushchair. What about earlier? Does anybody remember when they were 18 months? Do you remember when you were 1? What about earlier than that? You see, I do. I remember when my teddy bear was bigger than me. I remember it well. And I remember not being able to express any words. Well, I heard other people talking, but obviously I didn't know those words, but I remember that. What about 6 months? Starts to get hazy. You see, at 5 months, I was adopted. And if a baby learns so much in the first week, the first month, the first year. How do they learn? What is it that is going into the baby and affects the baby at such a young age? Well, I read another article, and it was about development of a child, and it said in the first 3 months, it's very important to hug the child, to hold the child close, to to care for the child by the mother. Well, I was adopted, and in the 1950s, when I was born, mothers didn't see the babies. In fact, there were forced adoptions, and forced adoptions were, if it was a solo mother, then they would the babies were taken from the mothers. I don't know whether mine was forced. My mother wasn't single, but there are circumstances that suggest that it was forced. And there's also evidence that my mother, Gwen, was told that I had a hole in the heart and therefore died. So maybe my mother went through life, or my birth mother went through life, not realizing that I was alive. Who knows? But in that first 3 months, I know that I was in an old army hospital in Green Lane. And that from pictures I've seen and from interviews that I've done for my book, that the Karatani nurses, they fed us. We were in long rooms with bassinets and whatnot in them, all the old wrought iron bassinets. And we were fed regularly. There's pictures of the nurses with 4 or 5 babies on their laps. So was I nurtured? Was I held? Well, I wasn't held by my mother. And I wasn't breastfed. It was all milk in those days. And I wondered how that affected my brain as an infant. I remember growing up, and when I was 4, I was at kindergarten. And what I remember was being bullied at kindergarten. Now, you might say, well, that's strange. No, I remember getting sand in my face all the time. I didn't understand what was different about me, but I knew I was different. I knew that I was adopted, whatever that was. The picture that I had was, and I was told, was I was picked off the shelf. And again, you can read about that in my book. But if I was picked off a shelf, it almost made me not human. It made me something else. Quite what that was, I really don't know, but I always thought that I was different and, not worthy of this world. Anyhow, by the time I reached 5, I had things hardwired into me that I was different. It was a natural thing for me to be bullied, and I expected it. And so that happened a lot. Excuse me. Anyhow, later in life, I've had some, bad things happen. Some people know my story about my first wife, Gail, who was raped. and what it brought us, and my time spent in a mental institution, and the illness that I carried with me for 25 years. Some of you will know of my attempted suicide 2 years ago, actually not even 2 years ago, and how a problem within my brain was present, and it was restricting, I believe, some blood flow to parts of the brain. And they could actually see it on a scan. Now, quite why that scan hadn't been done in the past, I'm not sure, but I don't know whether I'm meant to feel pleased or frustrated that it wasn't picked up, or pleased that I finally knew the answer. Since then, I've had to develop and to change my way of thinking. So what is it? How do I do that? Because if your brain is developed 90% of the way up to the age of 5, I can see now why various things have happened in my life, and how I felt different and I felt down because of it, and how it gripped my life and left me in a position that I am now, which is, financially bad. There's no other word for it. And not feeling particularly stable here. Not mentally. I'm overcoming that, but just in general. And it's hard. Every day brings challenges, and every day it's still difficult. But it's not impossible. And I guarantee some of you who are watching this understand that each day brings frustration or stress or upset. Maybe it's stress about finances, like me. Maybe it's frustration in that you could have done something about something. I have some frustrations, very much so. Some of you will relate to depression, anxiety, and general difficulty with life. Some of you out there may have tried suicide, or may know somebody who took their own life. Nothing can take away the grief that you feel after loss, or the grief you feel because you've had a life of difficulty. But you can face it. And this is what I'm trying to convey to you, that now I've had to face things, and that now I've got to rewire the brain. And all that development that was done before the age of 5 that set me up, all the development that was done in the first 3 months of not being hugged, not being held close, not being with my birth mother, I've got to turn that around. And to a large extent, I've started that. But boy, it's hard. And I don't expect it to be easier. And I don't expect it to just come along like that. I've got to work at it. Now, how am I doing that? You may have heard me talk about self-hypnotics and wondered what it was. wondered what power it has and that sort of thing. Well, if you think about hypnotics, I don't know, some of you may have been to a hypnotherapist. Now, hypnotherapists can go right back in your life and find out things that have happened, and then you can deal with them. So it's done under hypnosis. And I'm not talking about stage hypnotists. I'm talking about the power of suggestion and auto-suggestion, because that's what basically hypnosis is. It's the power of suggestion. If we're to change and redevelop our brains from what happened at a very young age, then we can do it through hypnosis. We can do it through self-hypnosis. And we can do that through self-hypnotics. It ain't easy. It's freaking tough. And not everybody will succeed. It's not a magic pill. It doesn't carry a Harry Potter magic wand. It's not something that automatically will happen. It's not something that only so-called intelligent people will be able to do. But it has helped me. And it's kept me alive. And I can see in my mind that I've survived, and now I have to see in my mind that I can thrive. I call that surthriving, the new word. So you've learnt 2 new words today, self-hypnotics and surthriving. I guess what I want to leave you with, I mean, the basic word is hope, but everybody does. Everybody says, oh, I want to leave you with hope. I want to leave you with hope too, but I also want to say that I believe in you. Anybody that's going through what I went through, or other things, other similar things, there's a message there for you that it is possible to turn things around. It is possible to rewire the most deepest parts of your brain, but it ain't easy. I'm not finding it easy. And I still suffer. I still have to take medication every day. And I still have a disappointment. Anyhow, please, if you're feeling so frustrated and think that you can't progress, if you're stuck in a rut, if you can't see your way out of a situation that you may be in, then what you first have to do is to simply breathe in, breathe out, and focus on what you want and who you want to be. Don't continually focus on just your situation now. The point is that if we go, for example, to the shop. We say, we can't afford this, we can't afford that. And we continually tell ourselves that. Then we'll be forever not being able to afford it. You might say, well, Pete, you've got money problems. Yeah, I do. But I'm learning how to correct those things. If you want to take a journey with me, if you want to be learning about this, and if you feel as though you'd like to go on this journey with me, then please let me know. I'm partway through it. And as I say, it's kept me alive. I've survived. And I'm ready to thrive. See, you don't have to suffer. You don't have to put up with the frustration. You don't have to put up with that feeling that you're not loved, you're not wanted, you're not needed. But as I say, it ain't easy. It's difficult. But I'd love you to walk that journey with me. So please let me know. Just one final thing, that is, look after your friends, your family. Reach out to them. But I've said it before. First thing, look after yourself. Because if you don't look after yourself, guess what? How can you look after others? It's the old life jacket rule, remember, on a plane. Anyhow, I told you I'd be getting direct to it and honest. I'm a suicide survivor, and I will be a suicide surthriver. Nothing will take that away. Nothing will cause me to go backwards. First 5 years of my life, developed 90% of my brain. And I'll spend the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 15 or 20 years, however long it takes, and however long I'm on this planet, I will take that time to ensure the bad things that were wired in my brain are reversed. How about you too? Anyhow, take care. See you later. This is Pete Chatteris signing out.